So I live in London. I write about music, mostly jazz, but not exclusively jazz. I also do some broadcasting. I make radio programs. I think that what's really interesting about the European jazz scene is that you see tremendous differences between the countries, whether it's France or Germany or Italy or Belgium. The different personalities of the musicians in these different territories, it really comes through. So this morning we were in a session which was called the Blindfold Test, where we learned a lot about Italian jazz, musicians who I'd never heard of before. One in particular called Massimo Urbani, who was amazing, and I thought to myself, well, I'm really privileged to be a British journalist coming to Italy and learning about a musician who I'd never heard of and who was really, really good. And there was something about the way that he was playing which to me felt incredibly personal. So that was like a definition of Italian jazz. I think in my country, in the UK, in Britain, there are also people with really, really strong personalities, and they draw on cultures that are very specific due to the history of the country through immigration. There are all kinds of traditions that they draw on as well, and you're essentially talking about real individuals, people who have something personal to say. And I think that's why I keep writing about the music and why I'm still interested in the music as well, because I like these strong characters, these strong individuals. I didn't want to be a music journalist. I think that's the funny thing. I just fell into it. I was actually working in education. That's my other passion in life, education and languages. And I had a job that I really liked in education, and then my contract came to an end. And a friend of a friend who was starting a magazine said, oh, we need somebody to write about music. Do you want to write a piece about jazz musicians? So I did. And then that led to more work and so on and so forth. And eventually it turned into a career. But it wasn't supposed to happen. It was a completely spontaneous thing. It was a surprise in my life that I actually became a journalist. I've always been into music, and I've always been interested in talking about music and discussing it with other people. So now I can do it for a living, and that's the difference. Well, sometimes it's really hard to make a living from it because it's a very unstable area, and sometimes the work isn't there at all. Sometimes the money that you earn from writing about jazz, writing about other forms of music, is not particularly good, because I think that there's probably been a lack of respect for the art of writing about music, and maybe a certain devaluing of writing about music as well. So I think in this day and age, if you're going to write about music, you have to really want to do it. You've got to be very, very passionate about it. And well, in my case, I can only speak for myself. Do it because you really believe in the music and you think that it's worth documenting, rather than I'm just going to do it for the sake of it, or I'm just going to do it because it's a cool thing to do. I actually don't think that writing about music is a cool thing to do. It's an inspiring thing for me to do, but I don't think it's cool. It inspires me intellectually and emotionally, but I just think if you're going to do something like that, then you need to have 100% conviction. Because a lot of people have said to me over the years, oh, you write about music, it's very glamorous, it's very, it's a fantastic thing, and you get invited to gigs and people send you music and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, actually, that's not why I do it, and that's not the really interesting thing. The really interesting thing is when you engage with the music and when you push yourself intellectually and you try and say something hopefully insightful about the music, which will, in the best case scenario, inspire other people to listen to the music, or open a door for them, rather than saying, oh, I'm a journalist and this is really cool. Because it's not. You have to be very, very disciplined and really dedicated to what you do. Hopefully, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, is just share my experience of listening to the music. This is what I feel when I'm listening to the music, and I'm trying to pass that on to other people. and hopefully say something intelligent and thought-provoking as well. But I can't stress this enough, it's a very personal thing. It has to be about me in relation to the artist and what I hear, what the music elicits from me as a response, and then I put that on the table, and hopefully people will take something from that as well. I'm not saying they have to agree with everything that I say. It's not about saying, okay, this is the definitive judgment. I don't think I'm passing judgment at all. I'm just expressing an opinion with some information, and hopefully that's going to enable other people to just make up their own opinions as well. I think that's when journalism is really interesting. You express your opinion and that leads to another opinion. So you become part of a chain of communication. I think if you have any passion in life, then it becomes more fulfilling when other people are drawn into the circle. It's like a circle and you make a connection rather than saying, okay, I'm in an ivory tower, or I'm standing here in splendid isolation and I'm looking down on the rest of the world because I'm some great authority or whatever. That's not how I see it. I like the idea of the circle and people being connected through music, through the arts, through culture, through debate and discussion. It's a really, really hard question because there are so many. Something that sticks in my mind from the last couple of years is Dr. Lonnie Smith. He's a Hammond organ player and he's a brilliant musician. He's a real virtuoso, yet at the same time he's also a really funny guy. And the way that he brought humour into his performance was outstanding, because he played to a very, very high standard, and then at the end of the gig, so he was on stage playing the Hammond organ in, I think it was a trio, he walked through the audience with this stick which had been tuned in some way, and he could make sounds and he could make different tones and timbres with this stick, and he was just beating this stick on the ground, and he was tapping people on the shoulder, and he was using it like a guitar, and it was just the funniest thing because he's very mischievous and cheeky, and I really like that side of his personality. He's like a deadly serious musician, yet at the same time he's also very funny. And I think if I'd been lucky enough to see Dizzy Gillespie in my lifetime, then maybe Lonnie Smith is the closest thing to that. So it just goes to show that absolute dedication to the music and the reverence that you have for the music is not at all incompatible with the sense of humour. And I like those two things coming together.